Hello everyone and welcome to my fourth video slash stream. This one will be featuring Gladiator Beasts replays. The deck which I will be streaming replays of today is as follows. As you can see here, the list is relatively stock. I did go ahead and add another bestiary, as I did notice that a lot of the games were being won or lost off of my ability to answer the back row. The other adjustment I made was kind of the spell and trap suite. I wasn't very impressed with traps because unfortunately I was running into Gladiator Beasts fairly consistently. So minimizing the stuff that I had to use during combat and trying to maximize stuff that could be used pre-combat was a very cognizant decision I made on that regard. Side note also, this deck only actually probably would need one Heraclinos and potentially swapping the second one for a second one of these guys, Nerokias. Probably butchered that guy's name. Also, I was very happy having two of these guys, as it was a good way to work through floodgate trap holes. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and get those replays started for you. Alright, the first replay will be starting momentarily, so bear with me. Alright, so once I see Pegasus as my opponent, I instantly start thinking through what potential matchups it could be. The obvious part would be suggesting some type of mind scan versus mind scan. With that part confirmed, I was starting to assume it was either going to be a Cyber Angels or a Gladiator Beast matchup, though I've seen some other oddities. Like I saw one deck that was actually trying to play Ancient Gears, so you never be totally positive just because of the power of Mind Scan. It can lead to a lot of diverse deck designs. With the opening hand of Bestiari as well as Murmillo, I was feeling pretty solid. I had Wall of Disruption for backup along with Enemy Controller. Being on the draw is definitely also important here. Seeing that we're against the Zombies deck right off the bat, as I said, Mind Scan can lead to some very unique designs in space. So he's got Gazuki, which is probably a pretty solid start for him, along with an Enemy Controller, so both things to be sure to play around. Ditching Bacon Saver means I have to be cognizant that the first time I try to attack, I'm not guaranteed to actually be able to get through, because he could Bacon Saver to counter an attack, which means I can't guarantee that whatever I want to transform this guy into would be an option. So I obviously set the Enemy Controller, the other Enemy Controller, as well as the Wall of Disruption. Basically, this guarantees that he can't attack into me profitably under any circumstances that I can foresee at this point. Pegasus goes ahead and draws, activates Gazuki, ditching Goblin Zombie. Basically, that's pretty much a free discard for him. And then he goes ahead and summons Illblood. With that thought in the head, or seeing him play Illblood, I should say, I instantly started thinking through builds I'd seen playing Illblood, which led me to to believe that he's probably playing Call of the Mummy, and in turn that 2800 3k guy from Chaz. So things to be aware of when you're playing through is, what could the opponent be setting up for in the upcoming turns. Activates Gazuki, getting on another Gazuki. I draw, hit another monster. Just play draw go here, throwing out another quote-unquote sizable threat for him to deal with. Now that he's got anti-magic arrows, I'm feeling kind of crappy about my position, just because, can't use any of these guys right here. He's going to be crashing in for some pretty profitable attacks against me. So, take 300 there. Take 600 here. Take another 1700 here. So, Mind Scan's off the table, so I need to remember what that face down card was, which was an enemy controller. Summon this here. Pretty positive that he's not going to have another anti-magic arrows. Most zombie builds, if they even play anti-magic arrows, only play it as a one-of, so he got lucky and hit it early on before I could really do anything too destructive against him. Special summons that guy, throws it into defense, knowing, well, I shouldn't say knowing. But yeah, we do know that he has Mind Scan. So he knew to play around the Wall of Disruption, which is why he took the line of putting both of those into defense mode. I think it might have been better for him to have actually attacked with Kazuki here, so that way, if he attacks in, and if it dies, which he's assuming it will because he knows I have Wall of Disruption, he could exile the Bacon Saver that he has in there. Otherwise, he could also have exiled the other Kazuki that I killed earlier, which then he would have been able to play what I would assume was a zombie, but given this line of attack, I'm pretty sure that that card is not a zombie, but could also just be different thoughts, missed that line, something to that effect. So he's crashing in here with his knight. I activate that, responding by activating enemy controller to turn this guy into attack position so that we can drop his attack down to 0, meaning he cannot profitably attack in with it. I toyed with activating this enemy controller here, but I didn't want to incentivize him anymore to activate the enemy controller back there and then getting rid of his heavy knight and taking this guy, because then my Wall of Disruption does nothing. My enemy controllers basically got wasted at the cost of this guy and that, and I still take 17 there and 21 there, so I would have died. The reality is my opponent probably should have not let that attack go through. He probably should have actually done the sack line even if I didn't activate the enemy controller, so thinking that was probably a misplay on his part, but since we don't know what that card in his hand, it might not have been. Go ahead, we get this trigger off. We get to summon this guy. Thought process of taking him here is we can crash in for 1600 and then crash in there, killing that guy, getting a trigger. Or we're forcing him to use the enemy controller to tap this, and then we still get to attack in with this guy should the option present itself, if nothing else better also comes along. Draw an impenetrable attack, set that down. We go in for the free 2 hits, forcing the econ play off of him, which is good. I'm feeling pretty confident about this position because, I mean, at this point, I've got 3 cards of his to deal with versus my 4 cards, so mathematically I'm up. I've got more cards left in library, which probably won't come into play, but I've had a couple games with GladiatorBeasts, so it really does come down to the last card or 2 in our decks. As I said, he's got that Bacon Saver, so he stops this attack, so neither of these guys get to trigger. He goes ahead and summons another Ill Blood, activates Kazuki. Hey, there's the big guy that I was expecting. So he goes to crash in here, which would have been lethal for me, so I activate enemy controller to turn that guy sideways. He crashes in there, I impenetrable attack, which lets this guy actually transform in a moment here, even though it puts me down to 100. Go ahead and summon out this guy. At this point, I wasn't totally positive that this was the right line. The thought process I have in my head is that I can use him to trade with the non-defense position Ill Blood. Then they can put this guy into attack mode, kill this guy, flip this guy out from Ermillo, assuming nothing better comes along in my draw phase. So as you can see, I hit the impenetrable attack in here, make the trade like I said I was going to. We do this, we get Mermillo out, we blow up his big zombie guy. He takes his turn, doesn't get anything relevant it looks like, so we're sitting pretty good. Play that down just because we are, on thin ice, so we want to be as defensive as humanly possible. At this point, if he's got the one trap thing, he's got the trap. But I also would have access to bestiary to blow it up should the opportunity present itself. So You basically got to sometimes play to assume your opponent doesn't have a a win. Like if he's got a card that he's gonna beat you, if you can't play around it, you simply don't play around it. You play into it if you have to. So we go ahead, we shuffle these two in. Thought process here being that there was the potential he has Wall of Disruption, which would have been a disaster for me. Both those guys go down to nothing, and he cracks in. He's forcing the impenetrable attack there. And then Wall of Disruption might be enough to hold me up, depending on what his threat was. He probably doesn't have another Bacon Saver in his deck, so the threat's probably lethal. So I wanted to put this guy out there simply because he's got a higher attack, which means if he has enemy controller, if he has Wall of Disruption, this is the biggest threat I could put into place to not die. Him doing this is not ideal, but it still means he's got to get a threat to crash into this that would actually have to have 2200 attack to even not take damage. So it needs 2200 plus to kill this guy, so I've got some time there. So this guy gets flipped down. Here we play draw go for a couple turns if I recall correctly. Yeah, so I've got half shot again to just, potentially weaken whatever threat he has. Like if he gets that 2800 guy into play somehow. Shuffle those two guys back in. Get that big guy back out. Essentially playing around the same lines again. Here, it is worth note that I could have left Bestiari in play and attacked in. He still could have enemy controllered it, or he was under no requirements to actually do so he could have gotten down to 200 and potentially had some econ take play, which would have been really bad for me since I'm at 100. Once you start to get your opponent down to, playing off the top, essentially, the more condensed you can make your Glad Beasts, the better. It gives them a lot less valuable lines of play against you. Especially if you can protect your one big threat. Here's Call of the Mummy. He's going to summon that 2800 guy. He's going to try and crash in. We half shut here. I toyed with the idea of using impenetrable attack or something here so that we could use this as a pseudo damage spell by knocking it down to 1400 and hitting him for 1100. That line wasn't lethal, so I didn't think that was going to be good enough. Go ahead, we draw again. We get Bestiari. Here the line's pretty elementary. Econ take his threat. We've got two lethal threats, so even if he has 8th Spearabola for some reason, the other threat still gets them. Alright. So that one's pretty clean, pretty straightforward. Definitely a bit of a nail biter, though. So we're up against Paradox Brothers. Again, I walk into this assuming he's on 3-star demotion and probably Ninja 3-star demotion to boot. Being on the draw is definitely a good thing in this matchup. Looking at the hand, we've got two threats, two spell trap cards, which is exactly where you pretty much want to be. Enemy controller and half shot are both really solid options no matter what you're up against, simply because they give you the most flexibility when it comes to ability to activate them and what they can do. Opponent starts off 3-star demotioning himself. Instantly, we see that he's got Black Drake and Ninja, which, God, that card's really frustrating since it can attack multiple times sometimes. He's got Ninjutsu Art of Duplication, Ninjutsu Art of Duplication, so he's got two continuous traps, which could pose problems for us. At least he doesn't have the other ultra rare trap for ninjas. Draw Bestiari, or no, Lakari, sorry. He goes ahead and does this. Sets that guy. Wasn't entirely sure what the thought process was right here, but he gets to go ahead, activate his Red Dragon Ninja. Sees that we've got half shut. I believe he sets half shut on top. Yeah, top of the deck. I think he would have been better served to put it on bottom if he couldn't kill me right here. Simply because then, if this guy somehow survived in combat, I could throw him into defense mode and half shot would guarantee he survives. He goes ahead, flips his Crimson Ninja, sees that it is not a trap, but rather a quick play in the form of enemy controller. So he goes ahead, gets another Red Dragon Ninja into play, crashes in here. I take 600, take 300 from this. Still have Mind Scan on, which makes me feel comfortable. There's the enemy control that he put on top also. Summon Murmillo, crash in here with the idea being that he takes 500, and then I can get one of these into play to blow up this, which will in turn kill him right away. It never occurred to me that I could have actually just summoned this guy right here and killed him, so that was a mistake on my part. So there's this guy. Go ahead and blow up the trap, get rid of the Crimson Ninja. At this point, I'm feeling pretty friggin' solid simply because his 4-star and lower threats aren't big enough, and he knows it too, so he concedes. One thing I have noticed through playing Glad Beasts is that the Ancient Gear decks are a very bad matchup, especially for the trap-heavy builds of Glad Beasts, so while I don't like playing this matchup, if I have to, having the increased quick play build feels much better to me. I'm much more confident, comfortable. I think it also lets me play more to my strengths. Like, if I feel comfortable, I take more time, I think lines through better, so there's definitely value to playing to what you are most comfortable with, even if it's not arguably the best build, simply because you can see lines better if you're more comfortable. So seeing that he has the ham strat down, I'm instantly thinking, okay, we want to get this 1800 guy in so that we can kill it. He'll get 2 tokens, but this will still die because the tokens won't actually come into play until it's dead, essentially. So he goes ahead, flips it, gets his tokens. This guy dies. We've got Impenetrable Attack, Half Shut, and Wall of Disruption all face down, so we're feeling pretty good as long as he does not get an actual Ancient Gear monster up and running anytime soon. We can slow that option down by blowing this thing up right away. We do know that he has the ability to play Ancient Gear Golem, which is unfortunately what he does here. Sorry about that. He sets Rare Metamorph and also Floodgate Trap Hole. I don't know why he crashes in here. So, interesting fact I found out today. You can do Impenetrable Attack at the beginning of combat before Ancient Gear abilities happen. So, in theory, I activated this simply so that it can survive and not die right here. He decided to go ahead and do me a favor and actually crash into it just to hit me for 1500. I was totally dumbfounded by that, but I wasn't going to complain. Pretty sure this is actually why he loses this game. Now that I have this out, I get to blow up his Ancient Gear Golem. And I'm feeling just like, okay, we're just going to go about our game plan. He's so far behind board position-wise. He goes ahead, he gets the Floodgate Trap Hole. And here's an instance where having that 2500 guy back here is great because I can essentially negate the value of his Floodgate Trap Hole by fusing these two together when I need to get the 2500. So essentially what he does with Floodgate Trap Hole there is a tempo play for him. I opt for this line rather than doing the 2500 simply so I can make sure to keep getting him down cards. From gameplay experience, I felt very confident in the fact that if I can simply have more cards to work with, this deck is so good that I can simply win even if my cards are only like marginally worse than this, and because I'll have so many more options available to me through the course of the game. Alright. Game 4 sees us going up against Yami Yugi. Instantly started assuming that if he's playing a Yami Yugi deck, he's got Destiny Draw, which means you want to be very careful what damage increments you're doing. Like, if you can hit him for 1900 versus 2000, I will always go for that 1900 unless I have, reason to believe that there's value in, hitting him for the extra damage. Very rarely will that actually be a thing. And we also notice when the game starts that he has balance as his skill. so he does not have access to Destiny Draw. He sets enemy controller and impenetrable attack, so obviously he's playing Gladiator Beasts similar to mine. We've got Wall of Disruption, which is pretty solid here. We go ahead and we play this down simply because it's arguably the worst Gladiator Beast, especially in mirror matches. So getting it shuffled back in to get, Marmillo, another Bestiari, or another Lakari into play is significantly more relevant. Not to mention having 1600 attack means any set card down here pretty much guarantees that he will survive combat no matter how my opponent attacks in. You also do not want to be the attacker in Glad Beast matchups simply because your opponent can either, attack in, have his thing survive, and then enemy controller your monster so that it'll shuffle back into your deck, but he's the one who gets to special summon the monster. Also, for some weird reason, when his Marmillo happens, if he's the one attacking, your monster will still get to shuffle back in before it actually gets destroyed by Marmillo. So the slower you can play, the better. He crashes in here, we Wall of Disruption, setting him down pretty far potentially by, blanking their attack power potentially. He goes ahead and does, the counterplay essentially of getting rid of my attack, or of getting rid of his attacker. He crashes in here strictly with his Glad Beast and shuffles it in. I don't know why he did not attack with mine and shuffle it back into my library. I'm assuming he doesn't realize the way that works. He does Marmillo my own monster, so that's not ideal. And again, I set this in defense mode simply because I have found out that you do not want to be the aggressor. I'm starting to feel really bad about this position. Like, he's got 4 cards to my 3, and I have no set cards to work with in the spell or trap area. He's got lethal damage on board already here. I'm not entirely positive what lines I even potentially could have to come back at this point. I'm like, maybe if he stops attacking, we get in here. Here we go. We swing in knowing that he's forced to Windstorm or Impenetrable Attack. We Econ take here so that we can crash in, force the Impenetrable Attack. We're going to get to go ahead and do the shuffle in of his Glad Beast in a moment. So we're actually not even losing card advantage on this line. We're getting card parity. I didn't think about the fact that I'm going to try to blow this up and it's not going to work. This is how I found out about that weird Marmillo effect. He gets to blow up my Glad Beast, unfortunately. I'm feeling more in it now that, it's 2 cards to 2 cards. Even though his Lakari is the biggest monster right now, I can still crash into his Marmillo, get some card advantage that way. And then I realize, oh wait, no, I can't do that because he can just summon another Lakari. But he doesn't do that for some reason. I set the Impenetrable Attack, set my monster in defense again. Assuming he's not going to attack into this, which he doesn't. Then you go ahead and summon this guy, which normally, I think that's a very solid line. This is the trump card in the Glad Beast matchups. If you play this card correctly, you do not lose to Glad Beasts. This matchup can literally be decided off of who was on the play and hits their 3rd Glad Beast first. If you go turn 1, turn 3, turn 5 Glad Beast, you should not lose this unless you do what my opponent's about to do. So make this guy indestructible so he can survive. My opponent decides to swing into it, which I thought was just ridiculous. I'm assuming he, again, wasn't thinking with the fact that since he attacked into this, it's going to go away. Thus, his Marmillo will not be able to destroy my monster. As you can see, he tries to blow mine up, then mine goes away, and I get to go ahead and do my thing here and blow up his Lakari, setting him way back. He literally just 3-for-1'd himself, essentially. Or no, 3-for-2'd himself, because he did get my trap off of me. And now, the game pretty much went from me being unable to win to me winning because he attacked for no value. Just going ahead and getting as big of a board presence as I possibly can. having the enemy controller set face down pretty much locks this up. Even if he has like a Curse of Anubis thing here, doesn't matter. I go ahead and I summon out my Necros and smash in for the game. Initially, I put that monster into defense on that turn because I was playing around Windstorm, having forgotten that you actually already used it. So there was another mistake on my part in that game. And this, I believe, is my rank up match to make Legend 1. So when I see Jaden, I'm instantly confused and thinking, what in the world is he playing? My mind jumps to either a Ties That Bind or a Fusion deck. I haven't seen this thing do anything else. So let me evaluate my hand. That's what I'm looking at right off the bat. I see 2 Lakari and 2 traps to protect Lakari, so I'm feeling pretty good. Opponent leads off with Senju, so obviously my mind jumps to Cyber Angels. Feeling okay so far. He goes ahead and starts ritualing off right now. I don't blame him for this. Like, you want to try and establish a bit of a board right off the bat, especially on the potential that I could also be playing Cyber Angels, and the easiest way to lose the mirror match when you're on the play is to simply not have enough threats to survive his Dakini. So he goes through the usual Ben 10, Ida 10 lines. We now know the majority of the contents of his hand. We summon Lakari. We set all of the spells and traps that we can, which ends up being the Impenetrable Attack, the Wall of Disruption, and the Econ. With this back row, we're very well insulated against Cyber Angels. This card should have been playing into defense mode. He can't attack with it. It has minimal attack in the current PvP environment. So I take the free shot here of hitting it. Even if I only get 200 versus 400, that's fine with me. We shuffle this guy in. We get Murmillo. We go ahead and do that to blow this guy up. There is consideration to have gotten the 1600 guy here, but the reality is that I simply want to deny him as many in-play resources as possible. Yes, he's got, like, you know, Absolute Ritual, so I'm not totally shutting off his ritual options, but I'm also cutting down his ability to attack into me for 1400. Opponent goes, gets their card, goes for the Absolute Ritual, which we kind of anticipated. He shuffles in those two. Plays Dakini. One thing of note here, he should have played that Petted Angel first to at least get a card off of it, and then shuffled it in. But here nor there. He goes ahead, tries to Dakini me out, gets blown out because of this, simply with me Econ taking this. He's down to 1 card in hand. Goes down to no cards in hand for Sonic Bird, which again, still should have played the Petted Angel first. Like, yeah, you get 1400 damage in here, but you're also down a card. And I would much rather have an extra card in hand and have my opponent have 1400 more life. Sure, he still has Mind Scan, but I'm Cyber Angels in his case. I don't really use my back row at all. If I've got something set in the back row, it's going to be Econ. I Wall of Disruption here to keep on my Mind Scan and also essentially get to use this as an 800 damage spell. Since that thing's got less attack, I can crash in for more damage. I opt for taking him 300 more life than I needed to, so I could have the more powered up Lakari on the upcoming turn. Or so I can crash in for 3200 and have lethal, which is what I kind of realized after I made the attack. Go ahead and set here. I forced him to Econ this, hit him for 1800, putting him down to 1100, which means that essentially any monster I would get out of my deck from this shuffle is lethal. I've also got Half Shut now to go along with that Impenetrable Attack that's been there from the beginning. He goes ahead, Senju's, grabs Dakini, and as I recall, yeah, Absolute Ritual is in Dakini, activates it, making me sack one of these two 1600 guys. And see, again, had he minimized his board position, this would have worked a lot better for him. So he attacks in I impenetrable attack to not have it die. Shuffle this in for a Lakari, and think about the fact that, oh, he's got 1400 attack on that little fairy boy. If I half shut it, it's down to 700, and I'm crashing in here for 1400. Had he simply gotten rid of this, he would not have lost this turn and likely would have won the game. Crash in for game, thus leading to my promotion to Legend 1.